Want to get a ton of information at 10 times speed? Want to get an insightful end cap of our first 20 episodes? Then this show is for you. Why do you coach? Welcome to the Nick Anthony Show. I'm Anthony.
And I'm Nick.
Hey, Nick. How you doing today?
I'm good. I just got back from vacation.
You did?
Yeah.
Where'd you go?
Went to Florida and played golf. And that was awesome.
A family vacation.
Yeah. But my golf game's in the toilet right now. So, I'll come out of it. I got to get a little energy. But it was a tough 4 days of my golf game.
A vacation.
Yeah. Yeah. There's worse things in life to be outside in 82 degrees and playing golf. So, how are you?
I'm good.
Thanks.
Good. I'm excited about today. We, I know that I say this all the time in our show, but there's a gap between when we record and when the shows get released. So the men's NCAA and the women's NCAA basketball championships just happened, and kind of two very different stories between Michigan and UCLA. But I want to briefly mention the Michigan team. And I know everybody knows this, right? So this is not news.
Not everybody. Go ahead.
Well, okay. But the championship team out of the starters, sorry, I'm not throwing things at you, out of the starters, they're all transfers. 4 of them were transfers this year. Mm-hmm. They're playing together for the very first time, which goes back to something you talked about in episode 15, I think. And then the 5th one was a transfer student as well. It just wasn't his first year.
Yep.
And so talk about the differences in challenges, right, between recruiting somebody in as from a senior in high school into your program, and then you have them for 4 years to develop how you want to develop them into players versus constantly recruiting, being successful in your recruiting, right? And then have them make them gel as a team, right? That's just such a different thing, right? And we talked about how hard coaching is all the time. So it's not even necessarily it's harder, although it may be harder, but it's different.
Yeah.
Right? It's everything's constantly different. So, the reason why we do this show is to help coaches figure things out, think through things, and help them reflect and think and all that. But the kind of thinking that you have to do now is already different.
Yeah.
I'm not sure some of the old coaches, from even just 10 years ago in college, right, could be successful in today's world. But so with all that, I know you know this, right? But we wanted to go back through and kind of recap our first 20 episodes because we blast through things. I get notes all the time. I get calls all the time. So, hey, tell me about PKE, and it's like all this offline stuff, or tell me about the 4 stages again. So I think we wanted to do like a little bit of a recap, Cliff Notes version of our shows.
Definitely. I mean, I think I get the PKE a lot. I mean, we mention it, and we refer to different things. So yeah, when you and I were sitting around talking about things, it was like, okay, let's feel good about having done 20 episodes, so, and then, so I think that's important for us that I think we feel pretty good about that. And then also, okay.
I think we should. I hate to cut you off already, but I'm going to do that because when we were putting the show together over the year and a half before we actually even recorded, one of the things we learned was most shows die after 8 episodes because the show content creators don't have more than 8 shows worth of content.
Yeah.
So the fact that we're at show 21 today is pretty awesome.
Yeah, well, we're geniuses for now. We're going to recap what we talked about to add an episode. No, I'm just kidding. No, but I think
strong words.
I think we have to talk about PKE.
Okay.
And I won't, but I'll let you kind of go through it a little bit. But most importantly, just the acronym of PKE is physical skills, knowledge as a skill, and then emotional skills. So breaking up traits, I would say, or skills, whatever you want to say it, into those kind of buckets rather than just physical and mental. So I'll let you take it from there.
Oh, no, I think you recapped it perfectly. I don't know that we really need to say a lot more than that. Physical things are things that you can see. So people naturally break those down. Speed, stamina, skills, you know what I mean? Strength, those kind of things are obvious, right? And if you look at NFL combines or any other thing, those are measured. So those get naturally divided up in people's head. But then things going on inside your head, it drives me crazy all the time when I see somebody make a mental mistake. They call it a mental mistake, even though it was an emotional mistake. They lost their cool or they did whatever. And so the model is like there's the knowledge of the game, knowing what to do in those situations and all that kind of stuff. And the emotional side is, all, like you said, all those traits that it takes to implement the strength, the physical characteristics and the knowledge that you have. So it's really just a different way to break it down because the more you can break it down, the more you can tackle it.
Yep.
There's still 100 or 1,000 things under the physical. There's 1,000 things, infinite number of things really around knowledge, right? I mean, think about that coach of Michigan, how much his knowledge has to change from the old model of Kevin somebody for 4 years versus, oh my gosh, 90% of my job now is recruiting and making them work together and making my system work with somebody who has to learn it quickly. Right? And then there's the E side that is different. It's like, can they hit a clutch free throw? Can they hit, all those kinds of things. So,
yeah, no, I, again, as a reference kind of a lot of our previous episodes, we often say, though, they have high E or they have,
Right.
So what we mean by that is they have a high emotional skills in this context. And we often do it, again, with coaching, whether it's awareness, whether it's, resilience or the ability to read people and communication skills. Yeah, meet them where they are and self-reflect, all that stuff. So that is a lot of what it comes up almost every episode. Right. It's come up with, the interviews we've had. It's come up in every kind of almost tool we've put out there is in some manner we fall back on PKE and it's specifically on E.
Right.
So
another episode that we did early on, actually, that I have to admit I use, but I have to admit, actually, that's not the part I admit. I admit that I'm surprised how impactful it is. And maybe it's because I've always tried to, not always, that's not true. I try to always be a positive person, right? And so your fountain and your drain model that you talked about, it's like language now for other people that outside of this, podcast. Right?
Yeah.
There's like, oh, be a fountain. It's just such great imagery on how to bring positive energy to every situation. And so that one is a great episode as well. That's what so when Nick and I joke around about when you and I joke around about being a fountain with our guests or whatever else, it works.
Yeah.
The imagery works. And it's something really to keep in mind.
Yeah, no, it is. Going back to my golf game, I don't know if I was a fountain on the golf course this past.
But you're aware of it, right?
I am aware. I'm kidding. I really am. But yeah, I think it is so much. And in life, it's like, who do you want to be around? Well, you want to be around fountains. You don't want to be around drains. And it's the same thing with coaching or playing on a team or whatever. Is you want someone optimistic. You want someone who brings energy to a room and not sucks it out. So
right. And as a coach, right? That's the kind of player you want. So that's the kind of coach you need to be.
Yeah.
Right. You need to be the kind of person that brings energy to the situation so people are attracted to you. So the kids model you, the player, whether they're kids or high schoolers or pros, right? You want to create that attraction and you attract it by being positive.
Yeah, no doubt. One of the things that I learned, I guess maybe I learned or realized I've learned from you in one of our episodes. We talk a lot about, self-reflection and
right.
It's so much of what we deal with in various conversations. But one of the things that I remember us talking about, and I'm not even sure exactly what episode it is, but and it may be multiple episodes. I think it may have been goal setting or or space. But once you self-evaluate, that's great. But then what are you going to do? And taking action. I remember, you were like, I think the episode was kind of funny because you kept saying, I'm going to push back and say, but then action. What action are you going to take? And that is stuck with me as someone who self-reflects.
Right.
Is to actually trigger my brain after I self-reflect to be like, okay, now what? What's the action you're going to take now that you have this knowledge of your self-reflection?
Right.
And that really that resonated in that episode, even though you were pounding me with it. I'm just kidding. No, it was actually very appropriate because I think my brain had been stuck on self-reflect, and I'm not saying I never took action. But there was kind of like that reminder of like, oh, okay.
And to go back, I think that's part of being a fountain, though, too, is it's really easy to get caught up in a tough situation and just blame somebody else.
Yep.
And even if you analyze it all and you say, you know what, it was 100% their fault, you still own it.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah.
You still own it. It's your life. Whatever you want to do with your life to change your situation, you're the only one that can make that happen.
Yeah.
Right. And our show's about lifelong learning, which by definition means that we're imperfect people. So we don't know everything, right? So the sooner we get to the point to where we acknowledge that we don't know everything and that almost everything is a life lesson, right? Then that gives us the opportunity to take action with our new knowledge. It was Muhammad Ali, I can't remember the exact quote, but he said something like, show me a man who had an opinion at 20 that still has the same exact view at 50. I'll show you a man. And I think he said man. I don't think he said person. I think I'm quoting. I'll show you a man who wasted 30 years. And I try really hard now, especially in my life, not to waste any years. And so I constantly evaluating, even not to the point where I'm flaky, or I don't think so, but I constantly evaluate, like, is what I believe really true? I need to look at that again, right? And I think that goes back to our show about vulnerability and how important vulnerability is. I'm very, it's going to sound egotistical, but I'm very secure in myself that I'm ignorant, right?
I don't know if that's egotistical, but yeah.
but I believe in myself enough to know that I'm human. I don't know everything. I have to keep learning.
Yes.
But I have to make myself vulnerable. Like I asked somebody, I was at lunch yesterday, and there was something on the menu that I didn't know, and I was with some highly sophisticated person.
Yep.
Right. I just asked what it was, and I'm okay being ignorant.
Yeah, no, I think that's actually one of your really good strengths. No, like, I mean, as you started saying that, I thought to myself, like, yeah, the number of times you have said to me, like, oh, stop. Like, I don't know what that is. Can you tell me what that is? Right. And I'm like, wow, I wish I had that. Well, and I can work on that. Right. Don't get me wrong. So I've thought about that because you're not the only person in my life like that, but I do think you're one of the most prominent in thinking that way, that you really are comfortable with yourself to ask the question, especially in certain realms here, right? I mean, if it's like, whatever, a certain sport that you may not know, or, then you will. Hold on, I don't know that. And I think that's a good lesson.
But that's what we mean.
Being vulnerable.
By being vulnerable is being secure enough in yourself that if you don't know something, you still are open. So instead of, if you don't like the word vulnerable, be open to it. Because what happened in that lunch yesterday was it was some kind of not weird, that's judgmental. Don't yuck on anybody else's yum. But it's a cheese. It's like a gooey cheese. When you cut into it, it like flops out or whatever.
Yeah.
So it ended up being like an icebreaker in that conversation because that person admitted they didn't know just a few months ago.
Yeah.
And so it made us closer, right? So there's all kinds of advantages to acknowledging you're imperfect, you don't know everything, be open to be vulnerable and become a lifelong learner. And that's a big part of what I think all of our shows are really about, is helping people think and reflect and try to, introduce them to tools that we've used, tools that we've created, and then bring guests on board who help us with those things as well.
Yeah. So and speaking of guests, but also another episode is, the 4 stages of competence was such a, I got a lot of comments on that one. I feel like from a lot of people, and it's not our, it's one we use, and it is like kind of a foundational thing for us, but it isn't our creation. But relating to the guest, I mean, when we had Denise Dillon on from Villanova, she talked to, there's a lot of things that I think we both kind of got out of it, that we realized that she's unconsciously competent, and she doesn't actually fully know, and it takes people, in her life, in her, professional, personal life, to almost tell her why she's good at that, or what she's doing that's great. And like those real-time conversations or those walks she would take to change the environment, she just is unconsciously competent. That's who she is. And so I think she's that. A lot of what I got out of that episode or episodes was that people, highly successful people, don't necessarily know everything they do well. They're just really good at it.
Right.
And then the journey with that. So I just introduced them both, but I feel like I'll let you.
Just a second, though, if it's okay with you.
A second.
Just okay. So to talk about really what the stages are, because they're kind of intuitive, right? Yep. And so it applies to everything. And there's a whole episode on it if you want to watch the longer version. But tying a shoe, right? When you're really young, you're so bad at it that you don't even know it's important. You don't even know that you're bad at it, right? And we run into people like that all the time, whether they're thinking about sports or politics or anything, right? They're so bad that they don't know what they don't know, right? Yep. I'm 2 years old. I don't know it's important to tie a shoe, right? And you become aware it's important to tie a shoe because now you become consciously incompetent.
Yep.
And again, we talked about it in the show, incompetence, not a nice word, but it's just, you're not good at it yet, right? You know that you're supposed to be able to tie a shoe, but you can't do it. So you're conscious of your incompetence. And then you get to the point you can tie your shoe, right? This is where it's counterintuitive based on the labels. You can tie the shoe, but you have to really think about it.
Mm-hmm.
So now you're consciously competent. You can do it. You can tie your shoe, but you have to really think about it. And then you get to the stage you can tie it and have a conversation or do whatever. And then you're at that point, you're unconsciously competent.
Yes.
And that's really, if you're swinging a baseball bat, if you're swinging a golf club, you're swinging, and believe me, I'm consciously incompetent at swinging a golf club.
So am I.
I know, no, but that's not true. But you're consciously competent. Anyway, whatever. But no matter what you're doing, it applies. And I contend it applies to not just your sports world, if you're a coach or whatever. It just applies if you're a business person in the business world, if you're an artist, if you're a story writer, whatever you are, right? You have to go through those stages, and every time you pick up a new skill, right?
Yeah.
And so it's not just, I'm good at basketball now. It's like, I'm good at dribbling in basketball. Now I've got to get good at dribbling with my left hand. Now I have to, offhand or whatever. And all the other stages, you go through all those stages. And it doesn't matter if you're a pro athlete. Anytime you're learning a new skill, you're going through that again.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, that was probably longer-winded than what you wanted.
No.
I do get a lot of people telling me, I never knew that. But that's a tool that is applicable to a lot of places. And I originally learned it in the business world, not in the sports world.
Yeah.
It applies to the sports world.
We'll be right back to the Nick Anthony Show.
Today's show is brought to you by Rio the Film, available for free on YouTube. Access the documentary at www.riothefilm.com. That is RIOthefilm.com. Watch the inspiring true story of swimming the most iconic marathon swims in South America. www.riothefilm.com.
Welcome back to the Nick Anthony Show.
We also talked a lot and had an episode on goal setting. We talk about goals and we referenced it, how you helped me in creating kind of the goal of Halo in my day job, and how that affected things and gave clarity to communication and just clarity to action. It was just that in itself. And I like the episode because it created, I also take a lot of it. What are the rules you work under in your goals? What can't you, are you not going to, what ethical rules or integrity we talk, but also there are other rules, in different areas of life that you have to work under, that are forced upon you, and then there's others that you are your beliefs,
Your own
right?
standards.
But goal setting was a big thing, and we still will always talk about the importance of goals and
Right.
as a perspective.
So, yeah, as I like to say, if you think goals, and I said it in the episode, if goal setting seems easy, then you're not doing it right.
Mm-hmm.
Goal setting is really hard
Yes.
for all the reasons
Yes.
you just said. But if you go through the exercise, and it takes to set a real goal, to set it the right way, it takes a
Mhm.
long time.
Yeah.
It's not an hour. It's days, hours, weeks, right? It could maybe even take months.
Yeah.
It sounds crazy, but go back and watch the episode. But once you do that, then everything else becomes easier.
Mhm.
Decisions become easier. Time management becomes easier. Direction becomes easier. Communication becomes
Yeah.
easier. Everything, right? Forming a team, all that kind of stuff becomes easier if you spend the time to really do goal setting the right way. It's really hard. It's really, really hard to do. But if you do it, there's all kinds of payback.
Yeah.
There's all kinds of payback.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, communication, I wrote down, we don't have an episode on communication, right? But when I was thinking about this episode, and maybe it's a teaser for one coming up, but everything is so related to communication. I mean, we talk about so many different things, even being a fountain, right? I mean, like,
Yeah.
what communication, what body language, what everything are you giving off in your communication? But even with the guests, we did talk a lot about how they communicate and what they look for in assistants and players, and so much of it relates to communication. I think we do need to dive deep into that at some point, because there's so much to that. I mean, it really is the essence. It's like we talk about, are you clear in your goals? Are you, what are you teaching? Or being positive in your words and such, right? And they're all communication. Sorry, I probably took your thunder right at the end there.
No thunder at all. I just I feel as if like almost every episode's about communication in
Yeah.
some ways.
Mm-hmm.
And two things come to me immediately when you say it. One you just said, and that is we have talked a lot about using positive words. Don't say don't lose the ball
Yeah.
in soccer.
Yeah.
Say possess the ball, right? I feel as if we've talked a lot about that. You don't think don't do a bad flip turn in swimming. You think I'm going to do a good flip turn.
I had somebody essentially comment to me about that specific
Example?
well, just the that 5 minutes or something, whatever we talked about is just that the positive words, whether to yourself
Right.
or whether to telling them what to do, not what to not do. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's not a sports thing.
No.
Because your subconscious runs so much of your life, right? Things happen all the time that it's like, why did I say that? Well, why did I do that?
Mm-hmm.
You're not speaking to yourself in a positive way,
Yeah.
using positive words. The other thing we have talked about communication, and we talked about it
Oh.
in an episode, is that, the shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line. The shortest distance between two people is never a straight line.
Yeah.
And that's come up lots of times.
Yeah.
Everything from the Chris Bates interview to everything else. And that is to really have you truly understand what I want you to understand. And for me to really, truly understand you, right? It's never a straight line.
Mhm.
It's always curvy. There's always all this kind of stuff. So trying to make it a straight line sometimes just creates all kinds of communication issues.
Yeah.
Right. So
Um,
so I will say, so if we knew, well, I'm happy to do an episode on it. I just want to point out to you, we do talk about it.
yeah. No, you're right.
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite or something that sticks out that isn't like a general topic or anything, but that whether it was a short conversation we had that we didn't know we came up with, or was there anything?
I've learned a ton through this.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of being vulnerable is, learning on camera from you is, most people have a hard time with that, but I actually enjoy learning from you. But I'll tell you, I was with the people from Positive Coaching Alliance this week, the CEO and the person in charge of external relations, and great people, right? It was really a nice conversation. They really are doing great work. They've been around for a long time. But they asked me the same thing. What was your favorite show? So, our shows are typically 3 formats, and I know I've talked about this before, but one is things that we created, like PKE, things that we've got from others, like, 4 stages of competence, and then the interviews. Well, the show really happened because we were asking each other questions all the time, talking about sports, and that's where this came from. So my most fun episode was actually, I think it was 15, the Ask Nick episode.
Yeah.
Where I totally caught you off guard. You had no prep. We had filmed an episode, and everybody was starting to shut down the cameras. Like, no, we're doing another episode. And you were like, I look on your face like, what are you doing?
Where are we going?
Yeah. But that was really fun because I thought that took us back to our roots.
Yeah.
And that was just, I have this observation. I need help thinking through it. Nick, will you help me think through it? Right. And so that was a lot of fun.
Yeah, that was cool. I think the best part maybe in the first 20 was the world knowing that I was the greatest fourth grade running back of all time. And I think when we ran that episode, I think we got to talk to Nick and Kyle and Rip. Like, we got to put those stats up a little longer. Like, I think everyone needs to see what those stats were. I mean, let's be honest.
Okay.
So no, but in serious, you probably know this because and you're humble in it, but the lessons and your accomplishments in swimming the English Channel, your failure in trying to swim the English Channel, to me, that is such a, there's so much. I mean, obviously we use so much of it with me and when you were helping me, in the professional context at Drexel, but there's so much in there. So I always like, kind of talking through those because I feel like there's so many avenues to and tools that come out of that. So I know that's not something that you love to kind of dive into from a personal standpoint, right? But like you also do so much of what you talk about can relate back to your success, in swimming. And
what I would say is I'm not the world's greatest swimmer by far.
Yeah.
Right. And
you've talked about that,
but I was really determined to swim the English Channel. Yeah. And then I did other swims after that. Right. But like, I was really, really determined. But when you brought Joe Seglia in here for an interview, that guy's resilience was like at another level because it was over years, right? I guess mine was over years too, but his was just, he was so young when he did it. And when he was in here on his interview, he was just so matter of fact about it.
Yeah.
Of course, that's what I did.
Yeah.
Like, what other choice do I have but to be resilient?
Yeah.
And I think that's a lesson for coaches to apply to themselves. And I think it's a lesson for coaches to look for in players. Like, if I'm a college coach now, right, I'm looking for resilience. I mean, in part of,
they're out there too.
Skills or that. I know there's a lot of coaches that know to do that.
No, I don't mean the coaches that know that, but there are, like sometimes I think we think like, oh, maybe today's youth or whatever isn't as resilient, and I think that's not true. They're out there.
I think they are out there, and I think that, again, if I'm college coach, I am looking for that. If somebody is way up here skill wise, okay, right. But if somebody's close, right, I'm looking for the most resilient kid. I'm looking for the Joes of the world.
Yep.
I mean, for people who haven't watched the episode, he didn't get in the college he wanted to. They said he was too small, and then he went on to become a pro player, NCAA champion, pro player. I mean, superstar.
Yep.
Because his resilience outweighed so many other people's skills.
Yeah.
I mean,
no doubt.
I didn't say that very well, but that was super impressive.
Yeah.
And then I got a lot out of Denise too. And so these are a couple of things that have changed the way I do things. And Joe had another one. He had another one where don't wait in line. So he hates people waiting in lines to
practice.
Right?
Yeah.
And so I've been doing some water polo sessions with the club around here, a team around here, and I
you used it.
I've taken it to heart, and I have them do things. I have them in tip drills, or I have them, egg beater in the right position while they're waiting to take their turn to shoot, instead of just floating on the ball, right? So that's good. Out of our session with Chris Bates, I mean, his whole IDP thing, I don't know if I didn't know that label, but since he taught that label of independent development program, right? And he basically put a plan in place for every kid that's unique to that kid. I've even done it with coaches. Like I've done it with a D1 soccer coach and that kind of stuff, but I didn't have that label for it. But now that I understand it's a label, I've heard it other places now. But so I'm actually, Chris has agreed to do an IDP with my kids.
Yeah.
Right.
That's cool.
So that's cool. And then with Denise, when Denise was in here, the thing that really, she has this tool where she records the practices.
Yeah.
And if there's any debate or any question or there needs to be a visual, she just takes the player right over and says, okay, here's the replay. Right. And so do we all have cameras in everything we do with our kids or with our, at work or any, no, probably not, right? Does every program have the money to have that kind of stuff? Probably not. But the concept of immediate, she does not let anything go.
Yeah.
She tackles it immediately.
Yeah.
And that was a big, that was really impactful to me too.
No, I agree. For me, like our conversation with Chris was really, it's just a reminder for me because I know him so well, but I love the emphasis on coaches being educators, that, keeping the perspective that you are still developing people at every level. You really are that and his background in education and psychology, and how that runs through his coaching. I love that part. I think it's so important that we remember that coaches are educators, and it's a fundamental belief of mine. And to hear Chris articulate it and then how it developed was just a really good part of the episodes for me.
And what I got from all three of them, right, is while they're educators and teachers, they also know, I'm going to go back to this, they know they don't know everything.
Mm-hmm.
Denise told us in the show, and she watched, I think, 3 episodes at the point we had her in here, and she'd taken 2 of them and implemented into her program.
Yeah,
already.
yep.
So, and I got to tell you, so there's this water polo coach where my kids go to high school.
Yeah.
My son goes to high school, my daughter. But he, as a kid growing up, he played for the Navy Academy club team, which was the powerhouse back in the day. He was a water polo All-American in college. He spent his summers in high school playing for a pro development program in Hungary.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this guy is like Mr. Water Polo. He knows so much about water polo. It's incredible, right? It'd be very easy for him to say, I know everything.
Mm-hmm.
But he's the kind of guy, he calls the UCLA coaches, right, and says, hey, I'm thinking about doing this. What do I do? He calls the coaches at University of Pacific and, hey, I like your program, what you're doing. Because he watches all their films, trying to learn everything he can of them. There was a professional team from Europe that was doing an exhibition game in Princeton a couple months ago. He drove all the way out there with 10 questions for the head coach for the Pro Reco. The name of the team was Pro Reco, for the Pro Reco coach.
Yeah.
Just that, he didn't go to watch.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure he watched, but he had 10 written down questions, and he hunted that guy down and got him to answer his questions. And if there's anybody who could say, I know everything about the sport, right? Or actually, I'll say it in a more positive way. So this guy, as much as he knows, a lifelong passionate guy about the sport, he still has questions.
Yeah.
Right? And he's still going out and asking questions. And that's really what, and I think it's always been true, but I think in the ever-changing world for coaching, because you're supposed to be an expert in the sport. You're supposed to be an expert at game, management. You're supposed to be an expert at game strategy. You're supposed to be an expert at teaching the fundamentals. You're supposed to be an expert at being a psychologist. You're supposed to be an expert at, teaching them PKE and, the 4 stages, all this. You're supposed to be an expert at all those things, right? It's really hard being a coach, and you'll be a better coach if you just say, I don't know it.
Yes.
Right? I admit that I don't know everything. I admit that I have a lot more to learn. And then you will get better, and you'll enjoy your job more. Yeah,
no doubt. So they're great. I'm, proud of the 20 episodes and love the feedback. We really want to hear your feedback. To the audience, the questions, suggestions on shows. We really do want to want to hear that stuff.
And we have more shows coming, as I mentioned, right? Most people peter out after 8, but what happens for Nick and I is we get ideas from other places because people watch the show and throw other ideas as we do interviews, and we get more ideas from the interviews. But we have over 100 shows right now identified in some format. I'm not going to tell you that they're all outlined, but a lot of them are outlined. A lot of them are just ideas, so it might change, but we have a lot more coming. But we want your ideas. We want you to contribute. We want to talk about things you want us to talk about. We want to bring in guests that address your questions. So let us know what they are. We have 26 guests lined up.
Yep.
So we're going to be here for a while, but please contribute. Please join us. Be part of the community. Give us your ideas. Give us your suggestions. And great suggestions we'll talk about on the air.
Yeah. I mean,
or on the show.
Yeah, no doubt.
Not really on the air, but.
And I think, some important things, make sure I threw in there that everyone should know. You don't drink coffee. I said that to you twice in the episodes. I love golf. I think I mentioned that in the episode. I hate traffic. Yeah, I have that.
Oh, were you going to say that? I apologize.
No, and then the last one that I need to say, the last one that I need to say is, I wore a sweater that I couldn't tell if you were being sarcastic in one of these episodes. And unsolicited, my mother said to me, "I love that sweater. You look so good in that sweater." That's why, and that's why you have mothers. My mother's the best. She is absolutely the best. So no, because I don't think you like the sweater.
I do. So,
I'm just kidding. So anyway, but it's been fun. It's always fun talking to you, and this is always these topics and these conversations are great part of my day and week.
Me too, man.
Thanks.
All right, buddy.
See you. Thanks for joining us for today's show. We want to hear from you with your questions and comments. You can find us at thenickanthonyshow.com and our social media handles, which you can find in our description.